is. Hold on, let me do my. Here you go. Now we can see each other as well.
Cool, man. Yeah. Appreciate you really doing this for me, dude. I really do appreciate it, honestly.
My pleasure. Where are you located?
I am in the down, dirty South, Mississippi.
Mississippi. MISSISSIPPI. That used to be so
That's
hard
right.
to spell. It used to make me cry. That was in a cartoon that I watched before you were even born. It was part of like Tom and Jerry hour, and they had these like little vignettes, and that was a cartoon of how to spell Mississippi.
Very, very interesting. Speaking of cartoons, I want to do a little introduction here. I never do these, but real quick, I just want to thank you real quick because you were honestly my childhood growing up, and it's really nerdy of me to get you on here. On right now is Jason Marsden. He is the voice of Thackery Binx on Hocus Pocus, the voice of Max Goof, the voice of Cheshire McBadBat on Fairly Odd Parents, and where I first saw the guy was Nelson on Full House.
That's right.
Man, let me tell you my dilemma here. I was researching you because I was watching your YouTube channel, and he has a new show called The Mars Variety Show on YouTube. Season 2 is premiering September 21st, 2020. We will talk about that here a little later.
Excellent.
So why I was researching, I was like, man, this guy. I didn't realize. I did realize you were Thackery Binx on Hocus Pocus, the voice of the cat, right?
That's right.
I didn't realize you did all this other stuff, and I was going through, and Full House is my top 3 favorite shows of all time. And when it said you had played Nelson, I was like, that's the nerd guy that was with Stephanie, you know, the duck lips. That was my first thought of who this was. And then I looked and I said, no, this is the guy that has the ATM in his limousine. This is
that guy. Yes.
It's that guy.
The rich guy.
No, the rich guy. Yeah, man. So also you play the voice of Tack in several of the Tack video games, which I played as a youngster as well.
That's right. Yes, Tack and the Power of Juju. Yes, did you win all those games, Dylan? How far did you get?
I think I know I completed the Magic of Juju, like you said. I don't know about the other 2. If I completed them, I'm pretty sure I started them though. But I was 7 or 8 when they came out, something like that. Right, I'm 22 now, so you can do the math.
Sure.
So man, yeah, I just wanted to introduce you, and I wanted to thank you for making my childhood awesome because it was. Because like Fairly Odd Parents and SpongeBob, you know, those are the 2 shows when you're younger. Those are the ones that I watched.
Sure.
Really, really do appreciate you, and thank you for doing that.
My pleasure. I appreciate you watching and digging all that stuff.
So real quick, we're gonna, I guess, go back to the beginning, and this is usually just a sit and chat and, you know, bull crap around on the podcast.
Good. I am
but I just
sitting,
want to get a little bit.
We're halfway there.
Me too. Me as well. Unless I'm just really short, but I think I'm sitting.
No, I'm definitely short. And I am sitting. I am sitting.
Yeah. You're what, like 5'3"? I think that's what your
5'1"
thing said. 5'1". 5'1".
Yes.
I gave you a little bit of height there, so you're welcome.
I had 5'3" on my driver's license for so long, and then one of my friends at a party at my own house challenged me on that height. He's like, "You're not 5'3". And he went and got a measuring tape in front of everybody and measured me, and I was 5'1". But I owned it. I owned it up. I went and changed my driver's license, and I've embraced being just shy of 5 feet ever since.
So you didn't do anything about being like them saying, you know, you're 5'3". It never occurred to your mind that they may measure me one day. So you never wore like work boots or anything like that.
I've never had a problem with my height. I've always felt like I was the biggest guy wherever I go. You know, that's how I've always carried myself like that. And I think I got 5'3" because that was just, I don't know, that maybe the doctor's office was off, but that was like what I was measured at the time. Maybe I was wearing shoes. I don't know, but yeah, I wasn't trying to hide it. You know, I'm proud of my size.
You know, I don't know of anyone personally that is under. My mom was like the shortest. She's like 5'4", and I think she's the shortest in the family of any generation. So like, it's weird for me to see it's not weird for me to see a tall person per se, because I'm 6', 6'1.5", give or take, and
Okay.
it's like most of my family is well over 5'10",
I could wear you like a
5'11".
kaiju.
Probably so.
We'll go around battle monsters in Mississippi.
I don't know what you're gonna find here, except for maybe a couple of Bigfoot sightings, which are a bunch of hog crap, but whatever.
What? You don't believe in the Bigfoot?
No.
Come on. I mean, I believe in anything.
Anything that has a story?
Anything has a good story. Why not? You know? My favorite joke, my favorite comedian says, Bigfoot is blurry. That's the problem.
Yeah. So you mentioned comedy, which I'm a dear fan of comedy, and I look at it as, just this lovely piece of art. So who are some, obviously with our talking, you've obviously have comedy in your genes, and you probably watched a bunch of comedians. Who are some of your favorite comedians that come to mind?
Man, well, I just quoted the late great Mitch Hedberg. Have you ever hear him? Mitch Hedberg?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. I don't have a girlfriend, but I know a girl who would be really upset if she heard me say that. An escalator can never break down. It can only become stairs. All right. I love Mitch Hedberg. I love Robin Williams, Gilbert Gottfried, Dave Chappelle. I'm a big fan of Dave Chappelle. I think he's smart. I think he's dangerously funny. And the comics that really, I mean, most comics like don't give an F about things, but Dave Chappelle takes it to that next level, and he's intelligent. How about you? Who you like? Who are you listening to?
Man, I really enjoy, like you said, like Dave Chappelle. I'm enjoying some of the newer guys as well. Like I'll go back and I'll listen to, you ever heard of like Bert Kreischer? He's this.
I haven't heard Bert Kreischer.
He's the guy that comes on without a shirt.
Oh, that guy. What's up with that guy?
I
avoid that guy specifically because why does he have to take his shirt off? I'm already uncomfortable.
Well, but the thing is, you know who he is, don't you? Because of that.
Yeah, but is he funny? I don't know if he's funny or not. I just know he's this weird guy that has to do comedy with his shirt off. Is that the extent of his humor?
I obviously think he's hilarious, but I think it depends on your humor.
I'll give it a shot.
Honestly.
I'll give him a shot based on your recommendation, Dylan. But I'm like, all right, we can't keep his shirt on. But I'll try anybody and inform my own opinion. I should not judge a book by his cover or his lack of cover, I should say.
There you go. And then you got greats like Robin Williams and Bob Saget and people along those lines.
Yes.
Have you read the biography? Can't think of the author's name, but they wrote it about Robin Williams. Came about a year or two ago.
No, I didn't. Did you? Was it good?
Yeah, it's yay thick. It's like 700 and something pages, but
that's okay. I've read all the Harry Potter books. I can get through a chunk of book.
Okay, I haven't, but I enjoyed the Robin Williams. I think you just have to enjoy. You can't go in there just saying, "Oh, I'm a big Robin Williams" as the actor type of thing, because they do cover it, but I think it's more of the internal comedian you have to love of Robin Williams to really enjoy the book of nature.
Absolutely.
So, man, I was going through doing some research, and your mom was a fashion model, and your dad was a premier danseur. Is that how you say it? I don't really speak that kind of language.
Danseur. Dancer. He was a premier dancer, celebrated ballet dancer in Yugoslavia. Yes.
Wow. Do you speak Yugoslavian?
I don't. It's actually Croatian is the name.
Croatian.
No, he did. He's actually not my biological father. He met my mother when I was 2. So he's technically my father. I called him dad. But no, he would speak it a little bit. I was always, there was really not a lot of options to speak Croatian in America, but every so often one of his peers would come through and they'd stay with us, and he would speak to them in Croatian. But no, I did not glean any of that.
Would you ever see him mad instead of using?
School. I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, I was going to say that. Did you ever see him or ever witness him, getting mad or getting this agitation towards him that he's just not going to use any type of language. He's going to go straight to Croatian and be like, and he'd just be like, "What are you doing, Dad?"
No, he wasn't like Desi Arnaz. It wasn't like, Lucy and Ricky. No, his anger came out a little bit differently.
So, child actor. What made you want to get into acting as a child? Was it because you'll see people that kind of like Macaulay Culkin, for example, you'll see him. He was interested in the idea, but his parents are really what pushed him, and they made him do all these roles even though he didn't want to. Was that kind of how you were growing up?
A little bit. I mean, I wouldn't say that I didn't want to. I mean, my parents pushed me. They encouraged me, let's say. But I was 10, 11 years old. I always liked the idea of wanting to be on television. I grew up watching a lot of TV, a lot of Nickelodeon, early Nickelodeon, and early Nickelodeon would show shows like You Can't Do That on Television, which was like a variety show out of Canada that featured all these kids doing skits and jokes, and it was like a little bit of Monty Python, a little bit Saturday Night Live. And then I'd watch shows like Who's the Boss and Family Ties, and I'm like, man, I would love to do stuff like that. So when we moved to California, it's the land of Hollywood, and I think I was more excited about like running into celebrities more than being part of it. I didn't think it was even on the table. But shortly after we moved from Rhode Island to Fullerton, California, my parents were encouraged to send me to a workshop called Del Mar Media Arts in Irvine, California. And it was there. I went for like 12 weeks. I did 6 weeks of like commercial theatrical, 6 weeks of like voiceover. And then they saw something in me. They sent me to an agent who signed me immediately and immediately started saturating me in auditions. Like the next day I went on audition for like a commercial, and then like a movie, and then TV, and then voiceover. And it just unfolded before me.
Was it stressful? Like, because I understand people can take stress different ways, but as a child, don't really know if you kind of, as a child, what stress is. But as you look back now, was it stressful? Was it just everyday life? What was it?
Dylan, that's a good question. I mean, it was, I look back and there definitely was stress because, my mother was the stage mom, and my mom took me on all these auditions and everything. And she, it was the first time for both of us. So I think she inflicted a lot of pressure on me that, looking back was unreasonable. And I'm sure she'd agree with me. We're both fish out of water in this business, but I was young and I was still learning. And with acting, there's a level of looking outside yourself. And I was very self-aware as a child. And it took me a while to really get the traction. And also like the pressure of, I booked a lot of things early on, but then there was months that would go by I wouldn't book anything. And we would have to drive from Fullerton to Los Angeles, which could take 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on traffic. So there was the stress of that, and going down to Hollywood for 15 minutes for a commercial audition, and then having to drive back and then not hearing anything. I mean, it's a lot of rejection you got to deal with, and it was a learning curve. But I think I definitely, with anything, you develop calluses, you develop a stronger skin, and it just sort of, I realized that this is the nature of the business. I'm good at what I do. There's a place for me here, and I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm still dealing with it. I mean, I had I think 20 auditions last week, and I had like one callback. I mean, and I know I'm delivering the best that I can do, but I'm not. There's so much competition now. I just got to keep at it.
How did you take rejection as a child? Like, if you went in for a random TV show or a movie, and they said, "Hey, man, you don't get a callback." How do you take rejection besides taking approval? Okay, you got the part. Besides how you take it now, because
it depends.
Obviously,
you go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say, because obviously some kids will we'll get this pretty soon. How we're going to talk?
I know it's the slight delay. That's all. Okay. Well, how do kids? Yes. Go ahead.
because obviously kids sometimes, if they don't get what they want, they'll throw a fit on the floor, scream and cry because they can't get the toy they want. And so like, were you ever like, how did you take rejection when they were like, okay, well, obviously I didn't get a call back, so I didn't get the job besides getting the job,
I threw rocks through neighbors' windows. No, I'm kidding. I didn't do any of that. I didn't throw a tantrum at all. It was more just like sadness. And honestly, like there was so much, like I was auditioning so much. It depends on the project. Like there were certain things that you'd go and I do, and I just forget about it. And then there were projects that I really, really wanted. And if I didn't book them, I would commiserate for a little bit, and then you just get over it. I mean, it's kind of like going through a breakup. It's like you're attached to this, and like I auditioned for Rocky V, which wasn't one of the most popular Rocky movies, but
it was the worst Rocky movie. But anyways,
what was that?
I said the worst Rocky movie, but anyways, you would have been with Sylvester Stallone. What a great bill.
It would have been fine, and I read for that 8 times. I went to the director's house 8 times. He loved me. John, the late, great John Avildsen, who directed the first Rocky. He really, really liked me. And ultimately, I mean, we all know, I mean, Stallone's son is the one who booked it, and I'm sure that he was going to be the one chosen from the beginning. So it was incredibly frustrating for that. And then seeing the movie and then having to deal with the nepotism of that, and then feeling not just the rejection but the unfairness of it. I commiserate, I bitch about it, and then you got to move on. Otherwise, what I'm not going to quit the business because Stallone wanted his son, to work with him. I mean, I'm a dad now. I can completely understand that. But that's just how it is. I never threw tantrums. There was a level in my 20s that I think I got arrogant, but that's probably about it.
Now, do you know the story of Sylvester Stallone and Rocky, like from the beginning? Do you know how all that started?
Absolutely.
It's an amazing story to see a guy broke, poor, has to sell his dog, and just to get a movie, and then he projectiles into what we see Sylvester Stallone as now.
Yeah.
And like you said, he brought his child in for Rocky V. And I'm wondering, is that an anxiety-ridden roller coaster for you to think that your kids could possibly get into the entertainment business? Because I mean, it's like some musicians don't want their kids to have that struggle. Is it the same kind of in the movie, TV show type of entertainment business era?
It's funny you say that because my son, I did a little bit of nepotism and had him in an episode of my Mars variety show, and I showed it to my agent, and my agent was like, "Hey, do we need to talk about your son? Like, do you want him to be in acting?" And he would love it. I'd be very encouraging. I'd probably be really. I mean, I've thought about it. Like, if we were to go this route, I would try to steer him in the direction that I wish I had been steered as a performer. I think I'd want him to focus on the performance aspect and definitely guide him to there's about the rejection and doing it and trying your best. But it's more just like guiding him as a person and how, if you got a lot of success, how to teach him to deal with that in a reasonable way, in a non-arrogant way. And if you dealt with a lot of rejection, to teach him to deal with that in a way that he could look at it as a way to build himself up instead of tear himself down. We shall see. We got to wait for this COVID thing to go off because I have to take my auditions and stuff like that. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not too worried about it.
Let's just say your son does wind up and he wants to go into the acting business. I had one of the biggest country music artists. I had his daughter on, and she doesn't use his last name at all. Doesn't he want to be, because I can obviously see you're going to hold a higher standard to that person.
Yeah.
Now, if your son was to come to you and be like, "Dad, I don't want to use the Marsden last name," how would you feel personally? Would you be like, "Cool, son, whatever makes you feel comfortable about doing it and booking shows," or would you kind of feel a little hurt in some way?
I don't think I'd feel hurt at all. In fact, it'd probably be smart. I don't know. I'm not. not a huge household name. There's James Marsden, who's definitely more
Right.
of a recognizable. I think when they hear Marsden, they think of him before me.
Now, are you kin to that guy? Are you kin to James
I'm
Marsden?
not. No, because Miles Marsden is not my biological father. So, so I'm not. I'm not actually. I'm only Marsden by marriage, really. And Jimmy is Jimmy's from Oklahoma. I don't think he's the same. I mean, his lineage has to meet up at some point, but I'm not actually kin to Jimmy. No, we're friends, but we're not blood.
It's funny you brought up James Marsden because I was sending, I got with, I don't know if it's you on your social media, but I got with someone on your social media and they were like, yeah, send an email over to these people. And I remember I typed Jason Marsden on my laptop and autocorrect automatically changed it to James Marsden. And I was like, and I didn't realize it until after I'd said it. And I'm like, oh crap. I just ruined my whole chance to get this guy on.
Man,
but it's just
even
funny
Google's
because
against
how
me.
that
Even
stuff
Google.
happens. Why do you say that?
Oh, if you're saying like it's autocorrecting to James instead of Jason, I just thought that was funny. Saying that even Google doesn't know who I am.
Yeah, but do they know who a lot of people are, though? I mean, think about it.
Right? Who knows?
If you're not,
I don't know.
if you're not Dwayne Johnson or have a net worth of $6 million, they're probably not going to know who you are.
Sure, sure.
So you talk about moving from being a child actor to, I guess, an adult actor is what I'm going to call it in this form here. So was it hard to transition going from child to what you are now? Like I guess a maturer actor in some sort, because I'm pretty sure you matured from child to now.
Well, that's remains to be seen. I
can tell with the humor here.
Well, man, you said you're in your 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're like, it's safe to say a decade ago you were a different person than you are now, and I guarantee you in another decade you'll be a different person. As we get older, like the shedding the layer is always difficult and maybe painful. Like when the snake sheds its skin, it's a growth thing. It's painful. It's constrictive. It's frustrating. And then you come out nice and shiny and glittery on the other side. That transition definitely happened. It was tricky because I went from like booking stuff one after another, having the confidence of moving from one gig to another on camera to nothing. Like all of a sudden, like the industry changed and I wasn't like a hot commodity anymore. I was working a lot in voiceover, which was fantastic. I loved it. I still miss doing on camera and I want to do more of that. But again, I mean, looking back, I don't know if it was my arrogance. I know that I had like a certain, unpleasant swagger when I would walk into a room. I know I wasn't that great of an actor. I think I grew a lot in my 30s.
Right.
I didn't have a whole lot of life experience. That was another thing. I mean, a lot of stuff I worked on was in a sound stage. I didn't really travel a lot. I didn't experience love or loss, which I think is a tremendous to absorb as a human being, especially as an actor. And I was still way too self-aware from doing a lot of sitcoms. So it was tricky, but I'm glad it happened because I feel like if and when, because there's always ups and downs in the industry. I was listening to do you know who Giancarlo Esposito is? Did you watch Breaking Bad?
I watched Breaking Bad, but I'm not. I'm just really
The
familiar
Mandalorian?
with
No, well, he's
the voice
example
sounds
of an actor.
familiar.
Yeah, an example of an actor who's been around forever. He was in Taps. He was in a lot of Do the Right Thing, and now he's a household name because he won an Emmy for this fantastic role he did playing Gus, this villain in Breaking Bad, and then he plays a villain in The Mandalorian. He's in his 60s, and he's been doing it forever, and now he's achieving the success. So what I'm getting at is like, I'm glad I went through the struggle. So like, when I get on that string of working again, if people, find me again or hire me, I will be accepting that success in a definitely more humble way, if that makes sense.
No, and the reason I asked that question is because I've heard, seen, and read about different child actors not being able to get, roles when they're adult because they're mandatory to this one role. And I see that they just don't ever grow up. They stay childish at some points. And that's where I was wondering if that was with you is, because obviously we have the same sarcastic type of humor here. And I guess my point of that question was what you answered was, I guess you did try to find strength in growing in the business.
Yeah, you can only do that. I mean, otherwise, you wouldn't get out of bed. You got to move forward like a shark, man.
Now, would you ever consider, because you mentioned that you were doing all these sitcoms, if someone was to come to you and be like, we want you to be the star of this new sitcom based around a dad that's yada yada yada, what would be your initial reaction if, before you've read the thing, what would be the initial, the script or anything, what would be the initial reaction of, do I want to do it or do I not want to do it? Did you love sitcoms or did you hate it? Or did you just fairly like it?
My initial reaction would be, are you sure you don't mean James Marsden? And then once I realized that they want me, then I'd be like, okay, I'd read the script. I have to read the script first. I mean, like, I really, yes, I love doing sitcoms.
Okay.
They are easy for me. It's incredibly gratifying. It would have to depend on the story, though. I mean, I wouldn't just jump into anything unless I had a connection with the material.
Now, take me, because you've been through multiple sitcoms. Take me through a day of doing a sitcom, because obviously you don't record it the same day you get it. You have days to rehearse, and then you'd have like a record in front of a live audience day. Take me through the day of recording in front of a live audience. What is that day like?
All right, good questions, Dylan. My goodness, you're good at this.
I appreciate that, man. I can guarantee you there are people that are way, way, way better than me than asking questions. I ask what I know. I want to know as a fan of entertainment and what everybody would want to know.
Well, I've done so many of these podcasts, and I'm used to getting the same questions a lot, and you're asking questions that no one's ever asked me. So that's
the goal here. That's honestly the goal. That's honestly, because what worst way is to, as an actor or as a person here that's getting interviewed, or as the person that's a fan of the person being interviewed, how terrible is it to hear the same questions 90 times and know the exact answer you're going to ask? I mean,
it's not terrible. I don't mind it, but it is refreshing when you're talking with someone who I feel like you really understand the process of the shows and asking, like, the pressure and growing up. I mean, no one's ever asked me, like, there's a lot of pressure. It's like therapy, my man. So a day working on a sitcom, the day in front of the audience, right? That's the day you want specifically.
Because we basically know you just go in and you get table reads, you rehearse. But take me through the actual, just the main squeeze we're trying to get that you see on TV.
The day, it's like when you're ready to go to a show, whether you're going to a comedy show or a music show or a big event, concert, that energy of going to a space. There's lots of people like that, because that's on show day. We have all the camera crew, we have the camera guys, the lighting guys, the producers. Everyone's there. They bring in the studio audience. There's a buzz. There's an electricity that happens. And you've already rehearsed all week. You've maybe shot a couple of, like, the complicated scenes, so you don't have to worry about that. As an actor, it's cake, because you show up a little bit later. You don't have to show up. You don't have to get up that early. You should probably start in the afternoon. You get fed a wonderful meal with everybody, and then you do the show. And sometimes you do it twice. But then there's that extra electricity of, like, now I'm doing this for an audience, and you're getting the feedback immediately. It's a lot of fun. I loved doing the audience shows.
Now, I wonder, I'm very curious because I'm a big TV and movie nerd. So I'm curious, what if, the writers are writing something and everybody finds it funny and then one joke doesn't land off to the audience? What is the process there? Like, what's to happen next? Are you supposed to stop and rewrite, or what's the process?
Yeah, sometimes they will. They'll stop and rewrite right there. They'll try a couple of jokes. Depending on the show, I didn't do this on any of the shows I worked on, but I worked just 2 doors down from Friends, the TV show Friends. And they were notorious for after the audience is done, after the audience is gone, and it's already like 9 o'clock, they will stay until like midnight and continue to rewrite and reshoot until they get what they want. But yeah, it became, in the 90s, it became really a writer's medium. Like the writers really got more involved in getting their work honed and massaged and nurtured, and so stuff like that would happen. But usually, like on Boy Meets World or Step by Step, like while we're doing the scene, the writers would be there and they come over and be like, okay, say it like this, or here, try this line, and then you learn it and you do it and you try it.
Now, how long do usually the live shows last? Like, if you start time is when, and it usually ends when, if everything goes perfectly.
It's like 3 or 4 hours.
Wow. So like a 20-minute show, 30-minute show on TV is actually like 3 or 4 hours filming.
Oh yeah, because you're doing every scene probably more than once. You have to reposition the camera. The actors have to change their wardrobe. They'll have like a warm-up guy, like a stand-up comedian,
right,
like warm up the audience, so keep it entertaining. Some shows will have like a band playing music, or they'll do contests and stuff like that to keep it going. But the audiences usually love it.
Now, I'm going to bring this up, and forgive me, because I have watched Step by Step and Boy Meets World every episode, but I'm more familiated with Full House just because that was always playing in my house. So I'm going to use that as an example if you're fine with that. Just because it's I want to get this vision in my head.
Yeah.
So let's just say if they're, because it goes scene to scene, like you could be Uncle Jesse sitting on the couch, and it could go to DJ or whoever in the kitchen, and then upstairs. How are those shots filmed? Like, is it like a movie? They're not filmed entirely in sequel. They're filmed in different, you could film the last part first and the middle part last, or something like that. Is that how that works?
No, in a when you do it for the audience, you do it in sequence, so the story makes sense. I mentioned earlier, like, well, if there's a complicated scene, like if there's a food fight or an effect, they'll usually shoot that first and they'll play that back for the audience, but they'll play it back in sequence. But they'll always do it from the beginning of the show to the end, so it feels like a play.
Okay, I got you. So it's basically a play that's being recorded to show on TV.
Yes.
In retrospect.
Correct.
Okay. I think I have a better vision, because I was thinking, if there's 2 scenes where they're in the living room, they're going to record both of those scenes. It doesn't matter where they last in the episode. They're going to film them both at the same time because they have the set there. Mm-hmm. But it's cool to know that they can pull them back and forth, and know that you can film it different ways.
If you're shooting like a movie, like a feature film, I mean, that would be the practical way to go. You do everything in that one location, looking in that one direction, and then you wrap it out. But in sitcoms, it's just like, you've seen a sitcom set. It's just it's like a play. It's like 3 walls, and if there's a scene like in the kitchen and in the living room, there's 4 cameras. So we'll have like 2 cameras in one room and 2 cameras in the other, and they can pull it together like that. But it's all done in linear and sequence.
What was a couple? I was going to say one, but that's probably too tough. What are a couple things that you had to learn being in sitcoms that you're just like, oh, this is going to take some getting used to, because I'm going to stop this habit? Like, for me, what's interesting is, like, if people are sitting at a dinner table at the kitchen, mm-hmm. you're not supposed to sit in the chair that's facing the camera, because because everybody's supposed to be facing the camera. That was very interesting to me to learn that. So what was it for you?
Yeah, that's very good. The blocking is what you're talking about. The blocking was
right.
The technical aspect of it was tricky. I mean, it wasn't tricky. It came really easy to me. It's all about hitting a mark. I mean, like you rehearse, and you move around, and then when you rehearse for the cameras, then you have to, like, if I walk over to the fridge and get something,
Mm-hmm.
the director might be like, all right, just stand there and deliver the line, and then the camera will they'll measure the focus. They'll have a guy with a measuring tape come over and measure the distance you are, so they can adjust the focus. And I can't, like, if I'm talking with someone, normally people will face each other, but if you're doing a sitcom, you're kind of facing out towards the audience. So it's they call it opening up. So that's that blocking of opening up. Another thing you have to learn is holding for laughs. You might be rehearsing something, and you might not realize what you're doing is funny in rehearsal, but in the audience will laugh, and you have to be conscious of that and hold for that so they can laugh, absorb the next bit of information, and keep the scene going. I also learned the hard way not to break character if something went wrong. You would think, because I've seen so many actors do this, they'll flub a line or something will happen, and they'll just kind of break character and cut, and it'll be fun for the audience, but it can also be frustrating for the production team. And sometimes you can lose a really magical moment if you just break. And I had sometimes when I was younger, I'd got in the habit of just like, oh, my jacket got caught in the door. I got to stop. When if I had kept going, I might have created an even funnier, better moment that was more organic. So I had to learn that a little bit as well.
I'm gonna go through some of your resume here, and I want to talk about some of the characters and shows that you've booked. So, which I'm pretty sure you've answered all these questions, but talk to me about getting Max Goof, which I didn't, because think about it. If you're a kid watching a cartoon, you're not really paying attention to who the actors are. You're just going to be like, well, this is a good show. This is stupid. I like how this happened here. So talk about Max Goof, because you took over from the previous actor who passed away.
Yeah, Dana Hill, the late great Dana Hill.
Hill.
It was just another audition. It was just one of those things. Got a call that they're doing a Goof Troop movie, and it wasn't anything against Dana Hill. Dana is one of the many talented female voice actors who is gifted at voicing female characters and male characters, like Tara Strong, like Grey DeLisle, and June Foray, to name a few of the fantastic. But they wanted, I think, for a feature film, they wanted authentic male sounds. So they were auditioning dudes, and I read for it and I booked it.
Right. So real quick, I'm going to ask it because it's starting to rain here. So if my connection goes away, then we can just pick it back up here.
Sure.
So that's what's going to happen. My apologies if that does happen. So what was your first Max? So did you take a Goofy movie? Is that where your first introduction for Max Goof was?
Yes.
Or was it the sequel to it? Okay, it was a Goofy movie.
Yes.
Can we just talk about how underrated that movie is as a Disney movie in general?
Just tell me how underrated you think it is.
For one, Goofy has a child I don't think we ever knew about. And
if you look at old Goofy shorts from the 50s and 60s, he does have a child. I don't know if the child was named Max, but that's not the first time. Goof Troop is not the first time that they've introduced that character. And they like Mickey had Mickey had nephews. We know Huey, Dewey, and Louie through Donald, but even Mickey had nephews, Mortimer and I forget. There was two of them. And Goofy had a son.
Well, I didn't know that, so yes. I do now.
There you go.
I knew the Mickey thing because my nephew here, he's like one and a half, something like that. He watches the new Mickey shorts that show on Disney, and they have the niece and nephew, and I'm like, when did this happen? And then you just go into this big spiral of background and history of it, which I think is fantastic. But no, being underrated, the movie. It's a great plot line. It's a great father-son story that I don't think you do see in some movies, but I don't think.
Not a lot of animated movies,
Yeah. Let me ask you a question about this Walt Disney we'll get your
Never
take
met
on
him.
because I don't never met him. No, obviously never met him. But do you think that they take the females out of the mother figures out of the movie because Walt Disney lost his mother at such a young age, or do you think that's just a myth?
That's a good question. I never heard that.
Yeah. So what happened was I don't remember this age that he was, but he lost his mother at a young age, and it really
Right.
defined and made him who he was. And then, but every movie you watch, either the mom is missing out of the picture or the mom is killed. Like for example, Bambi and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good
And
question. That's a good question. But possibly. That could be the
so
connection that he
with
has, that he's borrowing from his life, that he infuses that pain into those movies.
do you ever bring pain that you had from like past experiences into like have you ever gotten roles where you're just like, wow, that really hits me in this way, and I remember this is kind of a situation that I was in?
Not so much, really. I mean, most of the stuff I did, I was so young, and we talked about I mentioned this earlier. Like, I didn't have a lot of life experience to glean from. Um, when I was doing a Goofy movie, I was only 18. I wasn't a dad. I'm a dad now. Yeah, no, not so much, man. Man, you're like boggling my mind. All these good questions. Yeah, and I don't think so. There's
So
characters
you
that I bring a level of confidence and arrogance to because I'm familiar with that aspect of my personality.
now Hocus Pocus here in my household and my family, that's the go-to Halloween movie.
Yes.
What age were you when you did the voice of Thackery Binx, and how long did it take you to do those voices before the actual movie came out, if you can recall?
All right. The movie came out in '95, right?
Right,
So I was
right.
20. Wait, no. Yeah, I was 20. Um, and what was the second part of your question? Sorry, I was doing math in my head. That completely broke
No,
my brain.
how long did it take to record the voice? Like how long? Because like Fairly Odd Parents, I've heard Butch Hartman's podcast, and I've heard how he talks about how it takes like 6 or 7, 8 months to get an episode together. So you probably filmed that or voiced that character a while ago. So was it that way for Thackery Binx on Hocus Pocus? Like, did you film it like 8 months ahead of time before even the actors were there?
No, it was actually it was the opposite. The Sean Murray, who plays the human Thackery Binx in the beginning and the end of the movie, he was hired to be the human and do the voice of the cat.
Okay.
And after they completed filming, after they were done filming and they're editing it together, they already animated most of Binx. The producers decided, I think Sean was using his own voice, and Sean is a very, American, very valley sort of sound. And they thought, I think Binx, considering he's a 300-year-old cat from colonial Salem, he should have this old world sound. So
Right.
I don't know if they asked Sean to try it. It didn't work out, but they ended up doing a casting. I booked it. So I came in and I had to loop not just Binx, but I looped all of Sean as well. So when he's talking at the beginning, that's me coming
Yeah.
out of his mouth. But it took me, I think like 4 or 5 recording sessions. And then a couple months later, the movie was released.
So when it comes out, obviously it's not the big of a hit as it is now. People
Mm-hmm.
don't. You're playing a voice, so it's like again like the Goof thing. When people see you and they're like, "Wow, okay, you played this guy. You played Binx on Hocus Pocus." Are you getting kind of the same vibes as, "Oh my God, I saw you," because give or take, you look the same as you did on like Full House or Boy Meets World. You do look the same, but like, are people surprised when they see you and they realize that you played Binx on Hocus Pocus?
Yeah, it happens more. I definitely get more
Because I
recognition
know
in
I
that.
was shocked, honestly.
Yeah, I definitely get more recognition now than I did before when the movies came out. And I'm doing a lot of or before the COVID thing hit, I was touring touring the country. Like I was in a band doing a lot of comic book convention, pop culture convention appearances, and I would be there for like a Goofy movie, and then people would walk by my table and go, "Wait, you were him as well?" So yeah, it was constantly astonishing people, Dylan. That's what I'm still doing.
Did you realize this movie in particular? Did you realize that this movie was going to be such a big phenomenon as it is now? You never had is there anything where you were just like, okay, what I'm working on is brilliant. It's going to be around for a lifetime, and take all the egostisticals out of it, just the process of the script and how the movie was actually made.
Yeah, there's things I've said, this is going to be a hit, this is going to make my career, and nothing's ever happened. And then there's things you work on like, oh, this is fun, oh, I had a good time, let's see what happens here, and then 20 years later people are watching it every Halloween like you and I would watch A Christmas Story every Christmas. Or a Goofy movie. I mean, Kevin Lima, the director of a Goofy movie, would always say that it wasn't a hit when it came out, but I remember it was like, it held strong at number 2 in the box office like 5 or 6 weeks in a row. It was always there. Maybe not a big financial hit in whatever business Disney Corporation standards, but people liked it. As far as people holding on to it the way they are now, I never in my wildest dreams would have thought.
There is rumors circling around there's going to be a second one. Mm-hmm. Do you know for sure if there's going to be one? If you can't say, that's fine. I'm just curious.
All I know is that a sequel was greenlit. A script is being written, but that's all I know. I don't know if I'm in it. I don't know who's in it. I don't know what it's about.
Do you think you would be in it the way the first one ended?
I don't know. I mean, like Thackery, spoiler, who hasn't seen it, Thackery goes back to, through the pearly gates to their chosen afterlife with his sister. And I don't know how he would come back as the cat. I mean, there's many. I mean, Hollywood will make a way. They'll figure out a way if they even want that, or maybe they'll have a completely different talking animal.
What show or movie that you've been on? Which obviously you've been guests on the sitcoms, but have you seen the most residuals from? If you're even receiving residuals. I mean, I'm just a curious answer here, man. You're not getting any, I guess.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a great question. Here I did an episode of Will and Grace, and out of all the guest star roles I've ever done, that is the one that I constantly every year I get. I mean, it's not a lot, but it's a consistent
something
residual for considering it's a show that's been on for like many, many seasons. Because I guest starred on Boy Meets World, and I get more attention from the Will and Grace than I do the Boy Meets World residuals. That's a great question.
Man, I want to talk about 2 more characters that you played here that really have impacted my life and my listeners' life, and then we'll talk about your YouTube show. And if we have enough time, then we'll keep chit-chatting. I don't know how long you have. But talk to me about getting the role of Nelson on Full House. Because you know me, I've done said it. That's one of my favorite shows of all time. So I would be disrespecting myself if I didn't bring that up.
Man, I do believe, I cannot remember, but I'm pretty sure I was offered that role. I don't remember auditioning for it, but I would see like Step by Step, Full House, Getting By. What was another show? I did the rounds on these shows that shared the same production team, same producers and writers, and they all I definitely read for Full House a few times, so they were all aware of me, and it was very fortunate. It doesn't happen all the time, but I was very fortunate.
Read a few times, as in Nelson, or different characters.
It was Ask Again.
I said you mentioned that you had read for Full House different times, and I was asking, was it for Nelson or for different characters?
It was for different characters. Nelson, I'm pretty sure they just gave it to me, and I knew it was going to be recurring. I didn't know how many episodes, but I was completely overjoyed because I love the show. I had known Candace since we were kids. So I knew it'd be fun working with her. And the first episode that I was in was going to be shot on location in San Francisco. So I was like, that's cool. I get to go to San Francisco. It's always fun because I like most of the work I've done has been like on a soundstage. I rarely get to go on location. So that was cool. And it was great. They were so nice to me. Bob Saget was outstanding. Every time they went out to dinner, anytime they did anything, he always made a point to include me, which he did not have to do. But he's like, we're going to dinner. You want to come? When we went to San Francisco, he invited me out to dinner with everybody. And then he got a car and we crashed a comedy club. And because he's who he is, they let him do a set. They just let him walk on and do a set. So we're standing in the back of this comedy club with him and Dave Coulier. Dave Coulier was doing like celebrity fart impressions. and man, we had a
so
blast.
Out of the two, Bob and Dave, who is the funniest? Besides Bob's fame and being a stand-up comedian, who is the funniest personally?
It was Bob, hands down. And I always loved Dave. Like Dave, again, I'll go throw back to like early Nickelodeon. Dave was on a show called Out of Control. That's where I knew him from. And it was like a weird Canadian news/sketch show. But and I worked with him on some voiceover stuff. And he's funny, but Bob is just relentless. And he was as blue as on set as he was revealed to be later on in The Aristocrats and all that stuff. And I would considering as working on a family show with kids was shocking to me. But he was hysterical and always on. He was one of those comics that was always on.
Now, did you see any of the accolades that later came out of Bob Saget? Like he would be he'd be using profanity and different language that the underage actors could. Did you ever witness any of that?
All the time. Yeah.
I think you just said that. I was just gonna clarify and make sure.
Oh yeah. Your show is PG, so I can't repeat anything.
It's rated whatever you want to rate it. You can say whatever you want to say.
I have a really good story.
Sure, go ahead, man. Like, I would love to hear a Bob Saget story, honestly.
Okay. So I'm working on
I'm reading his book right now, by the way. So
Oh yeah? Okay.
Yeah, have you read it?
I have not. I should read. I don't read a lot of comic autobiographies. I should.
Go ahead, finish your story. I'm sorry for interrupting.
So I'm working on the Full House was shot on the Warner Brothers lot, and I'm a big Batman fan, and they were also shooting Batman Forever with Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones as Riddler and Two-Face. And every chance I got, I would try to sneak on the set and see anything that I could see. It was a closed set. It was very difficult, but I successfully snuck on and I saw Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones in their full getup doing a scene for Batman Forever. And I was so excited. So I ran back to the Full House set, go into the makeup room, and everyone's in there. I'm like, oh my God, you guys, I just saw Jim Carrey. I saw Tommy Lee Jones doing their Batman stuff. And Bob Saget goes, Jim's here? Where? I'm like, he's over there on stage 22. He's like, show me. So Bob gets out of the chair. We're about to do an audience show, mind you. So like, we're not supposed to leave the set, but we do. I take him over to the stage. They finished shooting. So nobody's there. But Jim Carrey's trailer is right there. It says Riddler. I'm like, I think that's his trailer right there. Bob knocks on his trailer, and I'm like, what is he doing? Jim opens the door in full Riddler costume. Bob, how you doing? Jim, how's it going? He invites us into his trailer. And they're talking. I'm like, my mind is blown. I'm like, I'm in this trailer with Bob Saget and Jim Carrey dressed as the Riddler. And Jim's like, Bob, how you doing? And he's like, I'm doing fine. He's like, oh God, that's right. You're doing Full House here. How's Dave? How's Dave Coulier? And Bob's like, oh, Dave's good, but his mouth is really sore because he's been blowing me all day. That's the kind of humor that would go back and forth. And we stayed for like 2 minutes. Jim Carrey was really nice. He came by the set afterwards. He brought his daughter. He autographed my Dumb and Dumber soundtrack. He autographed right over Jeff Daniels' face. It was outstanding. Now,
have you heard the story that Bob Saget's told about the Dave Coulier cutout?
No.
You haven't heard this story? Okay, I'll tell you real quick. So I don't remember where I heard this from, but I remember Bob Saget specifically was talking on a talk show or something like that, and he was talking, and he goes that Dave Coulier, they had this cutout of Dave Coulier, and they cut the mouth out. And Dave Coulier, they were picking each other up in a limo, and Dave Coulier picked up Bob Saget and was laying there naked with his penis sticking through the mouth of Dave Coulier. So they picked John Stamos up. And he sees the cutout picture of Dave Coulier and his mouth stuck out, sticks his tongue through it, going, when Dave Coullier's penis was just in it like 10 minutes earlier.
It'd be funny if Dave Coulier's penis was still there. But that's, right. I can't imagine the hijinks they must have gone into. And I'm surprised there were no, if there was a Me Too thing, then I don't know if they would have gotten away with it. But I mean, when I was there, everyone seemed to be like, it was like, oh, that's them. Like everyone understood, like that's just their humor. There was no harm in it. No one seemed to be affected by it. But I can imagine what must have gone down in that. I remember being in Scott Winger's dressing room. Scott Winger, who played Steve. And I was a big Aladdin fan, and I think I annoyed Scott with all my Aladdin questions. But I'm hanging out in his room, and Bob would come in. He's like, "Hey, can I borrow that pen? Because I really want to shove it up my ass." Listen, that was the back and forth all the time.
So, I really, and I'm probably annoying you with all these nerdy questions that I have about the shows you played in my childhood. So
don't apologize. You do it.
So, man. The last one I want to talk about, then we'll talk about your YouTube show. Chester McBadBat. So obviously you took the role. You took the role from Frankie Muniz.
That's Frankie Muniz. You got all popular. You got too busy.
Let me ask you, where did that voice come from? Was that something that the creator, was it Butch Hartman created? Was that something that he wanted, or were you just trying to mimic the voice of Frankie Muniz's character?
When I got the audition, Chester, I had no idea I was replacing anybody. I had watched the show. They just showed me a picture of the character.
I was like, oh, but he just sounds like this. I know
they said he was like 12 and he had braces, and he was smiling all the time. So I just had to make him like this. As I worked on the show, I learned, very quickly, Butch Hartman's sense of humor is very quick and fast and loud. And he just kept pushing me
in that direction. And so Chester just got more maniacal and more loud and more crazy and munch, 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 munch. I am the Lord of Time. Yes.
So it was a little bit of Butch's guidance with that helped tremendously. But I had no idea until afterwards I replaced Frankie Muniz, who when he did it, he was just using his own voice. So no one asked me to do a sound alike or anything. They were looking for something, and that's what they got.
Butch seems like he's one of the coolest guys. What was he like? Because he said he was. I remember listening to his podcast, man. So this is how my memory is so close. He was like, he was always there when the characters or when the actors were doing the voices. Yes. He was always there, always doing this. Yeah. What was he like as a person?
He was great.
I figured he would be. I would figure he would be great and awesome, but obviously, sometimes that's not the case for some people.
No, man. Butch is ridiculously, fantastically talented, and what he was doing was so unique. And yes, he was there during every recording session. I personally don't like line readings, but when Butch would give them, he never started with a line reading. He would let me try things, and then he'd give me a line reading, and I just honor it because it's his show, it's his voice. I want it to sound, I want it to be his music, He we would talk, like movies, comic book, we like comic book movies. We talk about like the new Superman Returns movie and whatnot. And, he was always very busy. He'd give you a little bit of time, but he was always accessible.
You did that show for a long time, and the show had gotten canceled 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
And got picked back up and had different characters. So when it was canceled the first time, I'm pretty sure you were bummed out. But when they brought it back and they canceled it for the second time, what was your reaction there? There's no way they're going to bring it back, or they brought it back this time, they're going to do it this time?
Well, I mean, I'll be completely candid, and I've already confronted Butch about this, and I'll confront him again. But I was really disappointed that they came back and did not include me at all.
Yeah.
Usually, and I admit I'm sensitive and I take things personally. I definitely admit that. But I've been doing this for a long, long time. And I've worked on shows that have done the same thing where they get picked up and they change characters, they don't bring people back, and the producer has the kindness, the thoughtfulness to at least reach out to the actor and say, "Hey, look, we're doing this, but we're going a different direction. Hey, look, we're doing this with a different actor." I never got any sort of communication by that at all, and I took it very personally because I love Butch. I love her. I thought he and I had a friendship a little bit. So to not even let me know that was going on, I was just kind of like sitting back. I'd call Tara. I'm like, "Hey, is someone else playing Chester?" And she's like, "No, they're just not doing any Chester stuff." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I mean, like at all. I mean, it would have been nice to know when you're playing with a group like that, and there's a kinship. It's like, and then all of a sudden you're not part of the team anymore. You just, the right thing to do would be like, "Hey, it's nothing personal, Marsden. We love you, but with this show, we're focusing on the little baby. We're doing this, and we're going to move away from these characters." I completely understand that, but I don't understand silence.
And I don't think it was just you. I don't think they brought back, which I was kind of older at this point, so I was catching them here and there, but I don't think they brought back like AJ or all the other side characters like AJ and Chester were. I don't think they brought any of them back. But did that leave a chip on your shoulder towards Butch in a bad way? Or did you guys wind up making up at the end?
I mean, I sent him an email because I kept getting residuals. You talk about residuals. I keep getting residuals from Fairly Odd Parents as well because they air it so much. And every time I open a residual check, I'm like,
all the time.
I would get so bummed out because that's all I kept thinking is like, well, that's great. I'm getting money from a show that they just kicked me out of unceremoniously. So I finally had enough, and I messaged him on Facebook. It's like, this is how I felt. And he's like, I make things to make people happy. I hired you to make you happy. And I'm like, yeah, but then there was this, and I don't think he really understood it. And I, if you ever want to talk about it, I'd be happy to talk about it. I still think he's talented. I think in hindsight, and I don't know the full aspect of it, but I think he got treated the way I got treated by Nickelodeon, the way I got treated by him and the producers of Fairly Odd Parents. I think Nickelodeon unceremoniously did something to him. If I'm not sure, which if it's true, it sucks because his show helped draw a lot of people to that network, and I will always say that he's ridiculously talented and he should do a lot more stuff, and I'd be happy to work with him again.
Yeah, not in a bad sense, but let's just say he got his comeuppance. I'm sorry it come to, you know what I mean? I'm sorry it come to that, but if you're going to be that way to somebody else, don't expect anything else from somebody that you're working with.
Sure.
Just in entertainment business sense, because I'm in that doing this podcast, and I'm having different sister podcasts come on the network, and it's just like sometimes you just have to be straightforward. If you can't be silent, because silence comes grief and then hatred.
It will be because of the little demon in your head that feeds you all the stuff, right. Like, oh, you're not good enough, or he didn't really like you, or you didn't really do that great a job. But I have to keep reminding myself it is show business. It is not show friends. So I'll bookend it again. I definitely have a sensitivity and a decorum that I try to abide by in this business. That I just try to expect that from other people when I work with them.
Well, man, appreciate your time. You've been doing this. Talk about your new YouTube show called The Mars Variety Show.
Yes.
The season 2 premiere is coming September 21st, 2020. So you guys catch that here in just a couple of weeks. So talk about this. What made you want to start a YouTube channel, and talk about whatever you want. And then I got one last question for you after you do this.
Cool yes, if your listeners are still listening and you're still finding this conversation interesting, please make sure that when we're done talking, when Dylan and I are done talking, you go to youtube.com/Mars Presents. And I have a whole first season, 6 episodes plus 2 mini episodes of a show I created called The Mars Variety Show. It's inspired by the classic variety shows of the 60s and 70s, shows like Laugh-In and Hee Haw and The Dean Martin Show. because there was a certain aesthetic that I liked about those variety shows. And I created it to celebrate the independent artist, the independent musician, comedian, alternative performer, like circus performer, poet here in Nashville. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm surrounded by ridiculous entertainment. And I'm surrounded by musicians who pour their guts out on stage constantly for sometimes no people. And I'm like, you know what?
I want to stop you right there because
yeah, go ahead.
I want to stop you right there just real quick. This podcast is independent artists, country musicians from Nashville. That's basically what this is. So what are a couple that you know? I may know them as well. May have mutual friends in them. Do you know a few?
We had on the show, we had Daniel Bell. I had my friends Anthony Adams and the Night Owls. I had Madison Ward and the Mama Bear. He's from Kansas City, Missouri. Samantha Crane, she's a talent out of Oklahoma. Lydia Britton band. I don't have a lot of country. You have like country guys and gals?
It differs on the genres. If I like it, I'll get you on. Basically, that's what I say. If I like it, if I don't like it, you're not going to come on.
Yeah, if you have some guys and gals that you want to recommend, definitely. But just let me sum up the show.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. The show celebrates these independent artists in a creative, fun way, and I call it a relentless good time, because it's just one thing after another. You don't have a chance to click or look at your phone or anything like that. It's just the joke and then music and then sketch and something fantastic. And I host it, and we have tremendous amount of momentum going on. We were picked as Nashville Scene's Critics Pick of the Week a couple weeks ago. We already got sponsorship for season 2, and I have a writing team this time, so we're already leveling up to keep doing this, because that's the beauty of the show. I want to do it as a TV show, and I want to keep doing them live, but because of COVID, I was like, well, there's really no reason not to do them virtually. I think people will be forgiving with the production if we're doing it from our respective houses. So that's what it is. It's sort of like a mesh of collective pieces that I edit together.
Yeah, man. So the Mars Variety Show season 2, September 21st. This will be out. Jason, as we're talking, will be out this coming Monday. So we're recording on a Monday. So the next Monday. So this will be out in time for this. So they're listening. They'll be able to catch it. So I'm actually coming to Nashville in a couple weeks. So hopefully I'll see you around there. But last question that I want to ask you, Jason.
Yes, sir.
You get all these questions all the time. How did you do this? You got this part. You got this part. What is one thing you go into an interview like, I wish they will ask me about this because I never get asked about it, or something that you just want to talk about that you're never asked to talk about?
Oh, I mean, I guess the variety show. Yeah. I thought of some very inappropriate things that I'm not going to repeat, but I mean, just to be funny. But no, I get all the good questions. I can't think of anything. My time working in Malta on a movie was a good time. I don't know, man. I mean, it's not so much what I worry that I care about. What people ask me what I want to talk about. I want to know what you want to know. I'm happy to talk about whatever interests you, really. So that's not a question I really worry about.
Well, man, look, I appreciate you doing this. Jason Marsden, at Jason Marsden on Instagram. The Variety Show, the Mars Variety Show over on YouTube. Season 2, again, premiere September 21st, 2020. I've said it like 6 times. You can't forget it.
Thank you.
Jason, thanks for doing this. And please don't hang up once we end this. Right. I want to refer little things to you. But I really do appreciate you doing this, Jason. Honestly.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you, everyone, for listening.